before hell had fire, before demons filled the shadows, before Lucifer ruled the abyss. There were no demons at all. There were only angels. In the earliest ages of creation, heaven existed in perfect harmony. Endless skies of radiant light stretched across eternity, and the voices of angels echoed through the universe like a living song. Every angel had a purpose. Some guided the stars. Some guarded the gates of heaven. Some carried messages across creation. Others simply sang, filling the universe with praise. And among them was an angel whose story would change everything. His name was Azazel. Azazel was not the brightest angel in heaven. He was not the most powerful, but he was different in one important way. Azazel was curious. While most angels were content to fulfill their roles, Azazel spent long hours watching creation unfold. He watched planets form from clouds of dust. He watched oceans rise across young worlds. He watched life slowly emerge across distant stars. But nothing fascinated him more than one world: Earth. When humanity was created, heaven observed with wonder. Humans were fragile. They were temporary. They were weaker than any angel. Yet they possessed something angels did not fully understand: freedom. Humans could choose. They could fail. They could learn. They could become something new. Azazel watched humanity closely. He watched them build their first shelters. He watched them learn to hunt. He watched them struggle through harsh winters and violent storms. And slowly, a question began to grow inside his mind. Why were humans so weak? And why did heaven refuse to help them? One day, Azazel stood beside another angel who was watching the earth. They suffer constantly, Azazel said. The angel nodded. Yes. Why do we not help them? That is not our role. But we have knowledge they need. They must learn on their own. Azazel looked back down at earth. Humans were fighting over food. Some were dying in the cold. Some were lost in darkness without understanding the world around them. We could teach them, Azazel said. The other angel immediately shook his head. That knowledge is not meant for them. But why? Because they are not ready. That answer troubled Azazel. Angels possessed knowledge of the stars, of metals buried in the earth, of fire, of tools, of power. Knowledge that could transform the human world overnight. Yet heaven had forbidden angels from sharing it. Azazel could not understand why. And slowly, curiosity turned into conviction. Maybe heaven was wrong. Over time, Azazel began speaking to other angels who also watched the earth. A small group gathered around him. What if we help them? Azazel asked. One angel frowned. That is forbidden. But imagine what humanity could become with our knowledge. They could destroy themselves. Or they could grow faster than ever before. The idea began spreading among the watchers. At first it sounded noble, almost compassionate. Azazel believed he was doing something good. He believed humanity deserved the knowledge heaven kept hidden. But there was one problem. The knowledge Azazel wanted to share was never meant for humans. Secrets of metal, secrets of war, secrets of power over nature itself. Knowledge capable of reshaping the world. And once Azazel convinced himself he was right, he made a decision that would change the universe forever. One night, beneath a sky filled with stars, Azazel descended from heaven. For the first time in creation, an angel stepped onto earth without permission. Humans saw the glowing figure descending from the sky. To them, he looked like a god. Azazel raised his hand and spoke gently. Do not fear. The humans gathered around him. And in that moment, the first forbidden lesson began. Azazel did not know it yet, but his choice would create something that had never existed before. Something far darker than he could imagine. Because demons were never created by God. Demons were created by choice. And Azazel had just taken the first step toward becoming the first demon ever born. When Azazel descended to earth, humanity had never seen anything like him. His wings glowed softly in the darkness. Light surrounded his body like a living flame. To the humans gathered around him, he appeared as something divine. They fell to their knees in fear. But Azazel raised his hand. Do not fear, he said again. I have come to help you. The humans slowly stood. Their eyes were filled with wonder. For generations they had struggled to survive. The world was harsh. Cold winters, dangerous animals, and constant hunger threatened their lives every day. They had no tools strong enough to defend themselves. No knowledge of the earth beneath their feet. No understanding of the stars above them. But Azazel had all of that knowledge, and he intended to give it to them. The first lesson was simple. Fire. Humans already knew fire existed, but they did not know how to control it. Azazel showed them how to build stronger fires, how to keep them burning through the night, how to use them for warmth, protection, and cooking. The humans watched with amazement. Their lives began to change immediately. Then Azazel taught them something more powerful. Metal. He showed them stones hidden beneath the ground that contained iron. He taught them how to melt it, shape it, turn it into tools. Soon humans were creating blades stronger than bone or wood. Axes that could cut trees in minutes. Spears that could pierce the hides of powerful animals. But Azazel did not stop there. He taught them about the stars, how to navigate by them, how to measure time by their movement, how to build structures aligned with the heavens. Cities began to rise where there had once been only small villages. Human civilization grew faster than it ever had before. At first, it seemed like a miracle. Humans were safer, stronger, smarter. But knowledge without wisdom is dangerous. Very dangerous. Soon humans began using their new tools for more than survival. They used them for power. Kings rose among the tribes. Warriors armed with iron weapons began conquering weaker groups. Villages burned. Battles spread across the land. The knowledge meant to help humanity began destroying it. From heaven, the angels watched in horror. "What has he done?" one whispered. The knowledge Azazel had given was spreading across the world, and the consequences were growing worse every day. Human violence had never been so destructive. The news quickly reached the throne of heaven. God spoke only one word: Azazel. Across heaven, the command spread instantly. The angel who had broken the sacred law would be summoned. Azazel returned to heaven soon after. He stood before the throne surrounded by thousands of silent angels. Michael stood nearby, watching. The voice of God filled the heavens. "Azazel." The angel bowed his head. "Yes, my lord. Did you give humanity knowledge that was forbidden?" Azazel hesitated for only a moment. Then he answered, "Yes." The heavenly host fell silent. No angel had ever openly admitted such disobedience before. God's voice spoke again. "Why?" Azazel lifted his head. "Because they needed it." Michael stepped forward. "They were not ready." Azazel looked toward him. "They will learn." Michael shook his head. "They are learning through war." Azazel's wings shifted uneasily, but pride had already taken root inside him. "They were suffering. I helped them." The voice of God answered calmly. "You changed the path of humanity. They were meant to grow slowly. You forced them to grow through violence." Azazel frowned. "But they will become stronger." The silence that followed was heavy, because Azazel had just done something dangerous. He had judged creation itself. God spoke again. "You believe you improve the world." Azazel answered firmly, "Yes." "You believe you know better." Azazel hesitated, but his pride would not allow him to retreat. "Yes." The judgment was already decided. Azazel had broken the oldest law of heaven, and the consequences would create something the universe had never seen before. God's voice echoed across heaven. "You wish to guide humanity." Azazel listened carefully. "Then you will remain among them." The light around Azazel began to flicker. "What does that mean?" he asked. God answered with quiet authority. "You will no longer stand among the angels." The ground beneath Azazel opened. For the first time in eternity, an angel was cast out of heaven. Azazel began to fall, downward, into a darkness where no angel had ever existed. And as he fell, something terrible began to change within him. The light of heaven was leaving his form, and without that light, an angel cannot remain an angel. By the time Azazel reached the darkness below creation, he would no longer be what he once was. He would become something entirely new. The first demon. Azazel fell downward through a darkness deeper than anything he had ever seen. There were no stars, no light, no sound, only endless emptiness. For the first time since his creation, the angel was completely alone. In heaven, angels were sustained by divine light. That light gave them strength, purpose, form. But as Azazel fell farther from heaven, the light began to leave him. His wings, once radiant like the morning sky, slowly dimmed. The golden glow faded. Feathers that once shone like living fire turned dark and brittle. Azazel tried to spread them to stop his fall, but they no longer responded the way they once had. "What is happening to me?" he whispered into the void. But no voice answered, because the place he was falling toward had never been part of creation before. It was not heaven. It was not earth. It was the abyss. A place without light. A place without order. A place that would one day be called hell. As Azazel fell deeper, something else began to change. Not just his body, his thoughts, his emotions. Angels were created in harmony with heaven. But now that connection was breaking. And in the silence of the abyss, darker feelings began to grow. At first it was regret. "I was trying to help them," Azazel said to himself. The words echoed uselessly in the darkness. Then came confusion. Why was I punished for helping humanity? The question repeated again and again. But without heaven's light to guide him, the answers twisted. Regret slowly turned into anger. "They punished me for kindness." His eyes began to burn with a faint red glow. "They cast me away." The darkness around him seemed to react to his words, because the abyss had no ruler, no order, no master, until now. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of falling, Azazel struck the ground. The impact shattered the silent darkness around him. Black stone cracked beneath his body. Rivers of burning fire burst from the earth. The abyss trembled. Azael slowly rose. Everything around him looked wrong. Jagged mountains of dark stone stretched across the horizon. Flames erupted from deep cracks in the ground. The air itself carried a heavy, suffocating heat. This world had no harmony, no beauty, no peace. It was raw chaos, and Azael now belonged to it. He looked down at his reflection in a pool of dark liquid. For a moment, he did not recognize the creature staring back. His wings were torn and blackened. His once radiant skin had turned the color of ash. His eyes burned with a faint crimson flame. I am no longer an angel. The words felt strange, but they were true. The light that once filled him had been replaced by something darker, something wild, something fueled by anger. Azael looked upward. Far above the abyss, the distant glow of heaven shone like a tiny star. So close, yet completely unreachable. For a moment, regret returned. But the darkness of the abyss whispered to him again. They abandoned you. They cast you away. The whispers fed his anger. They made me this, Azael growled. His voice echoed across the empty wasteland. As his anger grew, the abyss began to respond. The ground shook. Flames rose higher. The chaotic world around him began to shape itself according to his will. Because hell had no ruler. Until now, Azael spread his broken wings. Dark energy surged through the abyss. Mountains rose. Rivers of fire carved through the land. The first kingdom of darkness began to form. Azael climbed onto a rising throne of black stone. The flames of hell burned behind him. And for the first time since his fall, he smiled. They call me corrupted. His voice echoed across the abyss. They call me fallen. His eyes burned brighter. Then I will become what they fear. In that moment, the transformation was complete. The angel Azael no longer existed. In his place stood something new. Something the universe had never seen before. The first demon. But Azael was still alone. And a kingdom cannot exist without followers. So he turned his gaze back toward earth. And an idea formed. A terrible idea. If one angel could become a demon, then perhaps humans could too. After his fall, Azael stood alone in the abyss. The land around him burned with endless fire. Black mountains rose like broken teeth across the horizon, and rivers of molten flame carved through the dark earth. This place had never been shaped by heaven. It had never known light. It had never known peace. But now, it had a ruler. Azael stood upon a throne of jagged stone that had risen from the abyss itself. His wings were no longer golden. They were black and torn, glowing faintly with embers of dark power. His eyes burned with a crimson light that had never existed in heaven. The transformation was complete. He was no longer an angel. He was the first demon. At first, the abyss remained silent. No voices, no creatures, no life, only fire and shadow. But Azael soon realized something important. This world responded to him. When he raised his hand, the flames grew stronger. When he spoke, the mountains trembled. The darkness of the abyss was raw and chaotic, but it obeyed his will. Slowly, Azael began shaping the land around him. Caverns formed beneath the burning mountains. Rivers of fire flowed like blood through the earth. A throne of black iron rose higher and higher. Hell was being built. But even a king cannot rule an empty kingdom. And Azael was still alone. He turned his gaze upward toward the distant world of earth. Humans still struggled there. Wars had already begun spreading because of the knowledge he had given them. Weapons of iron clashed across the land. Cities rose. Empires formed. And with every battle, hatred grew. Azael discovered something strange. Every act of cruelty in the human world strengthened hell. Every murder, every betrayal, every moment of hatred. The darkness of those choices created something new in the abyss. Shadows began to move. Small at first, shapes forming within the darkness. Azael watched carefully. From the twisted souls of the most corrupted humans, creatures began to emerge. Distorted, monstrous, filled with anger and pain. The first lesser demons had been born. They crawled from the shadows and gathered around Azael's throne. Their forms were terrifying. Some had horns. Some had twisted wings. Some had burning eyes like their master. But all of them bowed before Azael. One of them spoke in a broken voice. Master. The word echoed through the abyss. Azael looked down at the creatures kneeling before him. For the first time since his fall, he was no longer alone. You were born from darkness, Azael said. The demons listened carefully. From this moment forward, his voice echoed across hell. You belong to me. The demons roared in agreement. The empty abyss was no longer silent. Hell had become a kingdom. Azael stood and spread his wings across the burning sky. Let heaven watch. His voice thundered across the dark land. They cast me away. They believed the abyss would destroy me. His eyes burned brighter. But instead, he looked across the growing demon army. I have built a new empire. For ages, Azael ruled hell alone, the first demon king, the ruler of darkness. But he did not know something important, something that would change everything. Far above the abyss, another rebellion was beginning in heaven, a far greater one. Lucifer, the morning star himself, was beginning to challenge the throne. And when that rebellion finally ended, Lucifer would fall, straight into hell. And when the most powerful angel ever created arrived in the abyss, the throne of the first demon would be tested, because Azael had created hell, but Lucifer was destined to rule it. For ages, Azael ruled the abyss alone. Hell had grown into a vast kingdom of fire and darkness. Rivers of molten flame flowed through endless caverns, and twisted mountains of black stone rose high into the burning sky. Demons now filled the land. Creatures born from corruption and hatred gathered beneath Azael's throne. They feared him. They obeyed him. And for a long time, Azael believed the abyss would always belong to him. But far above hell, something terrible had begun in heaven. Lucifer, the morning star, had rebelled. The most powerful angel ever created had challenged the throne itself. Thousands of angels followed him, believing they could build a greater kingdom. The war in heaven shook the universe. And when the battle ended, Lucifer lost. The moment Lucifer was cast out of heaven, the skies above hell tore open. The dark clouds of the abyss split apart as a blazing light tore through the sky like a falling star. The entire underworld trembled. Mountains cracked. Rivers of fire erupted violently. Demons across the abyss looked upward in fear. Something powerful was falling. Something far greater than any demon. Azael rose from his throne and stared into the sky. The burning light grew brighter as it descended. It looked like a star at first, then like lightning, then like a blazing comet crashing through the darkness. Finally, it struck the ground of hell with a massive explosion. The shockwave rolled across the abyss. For a long moment, everything was silent. Then something moved inside the crater. A figure slowly rose from the burning ground. His wings were enormous, stretching across the fire-lit sky. They no longer shone with heaven's golden light. Now they burned with dark crimson flame. But even corrupted, his power was overwhelming. The demons stepped back in fear, because they recognized what he had once been. An archangel. Lucifer had arrived. Azael watched carefully. He had heard whispers of the rebellion in heaven, but he had never imagined the morning star would fall all the way to the abyss. Lucifer looked around the burning kingdom of hell. His glowing eyes scanned the mountains, the rivers of fire, and the army of demons gathering nearby. Finally, Lucifer's gaze fell on the throne, and on the demons sitting upon it. Azael stepped forward. "You are far from heaven." Lucifer turned toward him. "And you are far from light." The two stared at each other. The first demon, and the greatest fallen angel. "This is my kingdom," Azael said. Lucifer looked around slowly. His voice carried calm confidence. "No." Azael frowned. "No." Lucifer smiled slightly. "This is only the beginning." The demons watched nervously as the two rulers of darkness faced one another. Azael spread his blackened wings. "I built this world. I shaped the abyss. I rule hell." Lucifer stepped closer. And yet, his voice dropped into a cold whisper. "You rule only shadows." The ground trembled as Lucifer's power filled the abyss. Even the flames of hell seemed to react to his presence. Because Lucifer was not just a demon. He was a fallen archangel. And his power came from the same divine source that once shaped heaven itself. Azael realized something terrible. The throne of hell was no longer secure. Lucifer looked at the demon king. "You were first." Azael remained silent. Lucifer's eyes burned with dark fire. "But you were never meant to rule." The demons stepped back, because they understood what was about to happen. The throne of hell had two claimants, and only one would keep it. Azael raised his hand. Dark fire erupted across the battlefield. Lucifer's wings ignited in response. The two rulers of darkness unleashed their power, and hell itself began to shake. The battle for the throne of the underworld had begun. The sky above hell burned with fire. Mountains shook as dark energy spread across the abyss. Rivers of molten flame erupted violently, casting red light across the jagged landscape. Demons scattered across the battlefield, retreating into the shadows. Because two powers stood at the center of hell. Azael and Lucifer, the first demon, and the fallen morning star. Azael spread his torn black wings. Flames rose behind him like a storm of darkness. "You entered my kingdom," he growled. Lucifer stood calmly in the burning crater where he had fallen from heaven. His crimson wings stretched wide. "Your kingdom," he said quietly. Azael's eyes burned with anger. "I built this world." Lucifer looked around the abyss. This world was born from rebellion. He stepped forward slowly. "And rebellion belongs to me." Azael raised his hand. Dark fire surged across the ground like a tidal wave. The flames of hell obeyed his command. Massive pillars of fire erupted from the earth and rushed toward Lucifer. Lucifer did not move. At the last moment, he raised one hand. A blast of burning celestial energy exploded outward. The attack shattered the flames instantly. Shockwaves rolled across the abyss. Even the mountains cracked beneath the force. The demons watching the battle trembled. They had never seen power like this. Azael had ruled hell for ages. But Lucifer carried the strength of a fallen archangel. Azael launched himself into the air. Dark energy surged from his wings as he attacked. His claws struck like lightning. Lucifer blocked the attack and pushed him back with overwhelming force. The ground shattered beneath them. "Your power comes from the abyss," Lucifer said calmly. "And yours came from heaven," Azael snapped. Lucifer smiled slightly. "It still does." Lucifer moved faster than Azael expected. In a single motion, he struck the first demon with a wave of burning energy. Azael crashed into the side of a black mountain. The rock exploded around him. For a moment, the battlefield grew quiet. Slowly, Azael rose again. His wings burned with darker fire. "You think you can take my throne?" Lucifer's voice echoed through the abyss. "I already have." Lucifer raised both hands. The fire of hell itself began to swirl around him. The abyss trembled. The rivers of flame twisted into massive storms of burning energy. Even the demons felt the change. Hell itself was responding to Lucifer. Because Lucifer was not just another demon. He was the most powerful angel heaven had ever created. And even after his fall, that power remained. Lucifer unleashed the final strike. A wave of blazing energy surged across the battlefield. The force shattered Azael's defenses completely. The first demon was thrown across the abyss and crashed into the shattered remains of his own throne. The black stone throne broke apart beneath him. Silence spread across hell. Demons slowly emerged from the shadows. Their glowing eyes turned toward the center of the battlefield. Lucifer stood alone. His wings stretched across the burning sky. The flames of hell bent toward him like living creatures. Lucifer walked slowly toward the shattered throne. He lifted his hand. The broken stone began to rise. The throne rebuilt itself into something even larger, even darker, even more powerful. Lucifer sat upon it. And at that moment, the kingdom of hell changed forever. The demons fell to their knees. They had seen the battle. They had seen the power. They knew the truth. Azael may have been the first demon, but Lucifer was now their king. Lucifer's voice echoed across the abyss. From this moment forward, his glowing eyes scanned the demon army. "Hell belongs to me." The demons roared, and the throne of darkness was finally claimed. But the story of the first demon was not finished, because Azael was still alive, and revenge had begun to grow inside his heart. The battlefield of hell slowly grew quiet. The mountains of black stone stopped trembling. The rivers of fire calmed and returned to their slow, burning flow across the abyss. At the center of the dark kingdom stood Lucifer, the fallen morning star, the new ruler of hell. Lucifer sat upon the rebuilt throne of black iron and flame. His wings stretched across the burning sky like shadows cast by fire. Below him, thousands of demons knelt in fear. Because they had witnessed the battle. They had seen the power of the fallen archangel. And they knew one thing with absolute certainty. Hell had a new king. But not everyone had bowed. Far across the battlefield, a dark figure slowly rose from the shattered remains of the old throne. Azael, the first demon ever created. His wings were torn and broken. Dark fire still flickered weakly around his body. But he was alive. Lucifer watched him carefully. "You survived," he said calmly. Azael lifted his head. His glowing eyes burned with anger. "I always do." The demons shifted nervously. No one spoke to Lucifer with such defiance. But Azael had once ruled hell. And pride does not disappear easily. "You built this place," Lucifer said. "Yes," Azael answered. "And yet you could not protect it." Azael clenched his fists. "You stole my kingdom." Lucifer leaned forward slightly on the throne. "No." His voice echoed across the abyss. "I took what you were too weak to keep." For a moment, it seemed as if Azael might attack again. The darkness around him trembled. But even he understood the truth. Lucifer's power was far beyond his own. The fallen archangel had once stood among the greatest beings in heaven. A demon, even the first one, could not defeat him. Lucifer stood from the throne and stepped down toward Azael. "You were the first demon," he said. "That will always be your legacy." Azael said nothing. Lucifer continued, "But hell needs more than the first. It needs a ruler." Lucifer turned toward the demon army. "From this moment forward, I rule the abyss." The demons bowed even lower. But Azael remained standing. Lucifer noticed. "You can serve me." Azael looked up slowly. Serve? Lucifer nodded. You know hell better than any other demon. You will command my armies. For a long moment, Azazel said nothing. Once he had been an angel of heaven. Once he had believed he was improving creation. Now he was being offered a place beneath another ruler of darkness. Finally he spoke. I will not serve. Gasps spread through the demon army. No one refused Lucifer. No one dared. Lucifer studied him for a moment. You still have pride. Azazel answered quietly. So do you. The abyss trembled again. Two ancient rebellions standing face to face. But Lucifer did not attack. Instead, he returned to the throne. You are not strong enough to threaten me anymore. His voice was calm. Leave. Azazel looked around the kingdom he had once ruled. The mountains. The flames. The demon army. Everything had changed. Everything now belonged to Lucifer. Before turning away, Azazel spoke one final sentence. You may rule hell. Lucifer looked down at him. But remember something. Azazel's eyes burned with dark knowledge. I created the first demon. And one day, his voice echoed through the abyss. I may create the last. Then Azazel spread his broken wings and vanished into the endless darkness beyond hell. No one saw where he went. No one knew where he hid. But the first demon still existed somewhere in the shadows of creation. Watching, waiting, remembering the light he had once lost. Lucifer remained on the throne of hell. The demons bowed before him. And the war between heaven and hell began to grow. But somewhere beyond the abyss, the first demons still walked the darkness. Because the most dangerous creatures in the universe are not those born in darkness. They are the ones who once lived in the light.